or I'm not sure when. Can you hear me without the microphone? Okay. Okay, thanks. No? No? Okay. So my sister, let's see, let me go backwards. I grew up across the street from Reb Shlomo Shul on 79th Street, and my grandmother started going, and she loved it, so she brought my mother, and then my mother loved it, so she brought my sister, and then they brought me. And so my sister knew Reb Shlomo as well, and she told me something that blew my mind. She said, well, she wasn't even bringing this up because it's the Yahrtzeit. I thought that's why she was saying it, but that's not why she was saying it. She just brought it up out of nowhere. She said, yeah, you know, when I was at the Levaya, the funeral, and I was in Los Angeles, so I didn't attend it. And I was like, you were at the Levaya? And she said, yeah. I said, what was that like? She said, well, I was standing behind two men who were in the Hells Angels. And I said, how did you know that? And she said, because they had jackets and on the back it said Hells Angels. I said, oh, so okay, I guess they were in the Hells Angels. And I don't know, I never heard that detail before. I never heard that before. And you know, I'm not surprised, but it's just like how many people and how wide Reb Shlomo's coalition, if you will, was. It was endless. It really was the entire world. It really was the entire world. So I was thinking, what can I say? What can I say? And I'll just start with this. After Shabbos tonight, I went back to my place, and I'm just kind of catching up on the news. And I see an article in the New York Times that really caught my eye. The name of it was Satisfying versus Productive. Satisfying versus productive. And I thought, oh, well, what's that about? That's sort of interesting to me. And I clicked on it, and it was the great debate of how to spend your weekend. Like, should you be productive? Should you run like lots of errands and take care of business? Or should it be satisfying, like you're kind of just like hanging out and you're relaxing? And it was a very sincere, very thoughtful piece. And I thought to myself, wow, we don't have that debate because God solved it with Shabbos. It is satisfying, and because you get to relax and daven and be around friends and community and everything like that, it's inherently productive because you're doing God's will. So it's satisfying and productive in the best ways possible. And I personally have Reb Shlomo to thank for giving me Shabbos. You know, he talked about Shabbos all of the time. And I remember going up to him one time and I asked him, I said, of all the mitzvahs, why did you pick Shabbos to talk about the most? And he said, because the world needs paradise. That's how he answered. So think about how much more Shabbos there is in the world because of Reb Shlomo. I mean, this shul is basically, we just started a daily Minyan, Monday through Thursday. Everyone should come. It starts at 6 a.m. It's an awesome Minyan. But for 29 years, all the shul was Shabbos. But how much more Shabbos is there in the world? Remember, the Messianic age is called Yom Shekulo Shabbos, the day that will be all Shabbos. How much more the day that will be all Shabbos is in the world right now because of Reb Shlomo? A lot. I can tell you, a lot. But more than that, because when I first started keeping Shabbos, it was also difficult because it was sort of like, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this and you can't do that, until I realized, you mean I get to do nothing? Wow! Yes! That is what I want. So this idea, and Ben Sion, you say it every Shabbos so beautifully. You give the time that Shabbos ends, and then you say in the exact same breath, but Shabbos never ends. And this idea of, there's sort of like an outline. There are boundaries to every mitzvah, but that there's a place within the mitzvot themselves, within Hashem Himself, which is just absolutely boundless. And I think that part of what Reb Shlomo gave the world, and certainly me, was this consciousness of boundlessness. And I want to be a little bit more specific. You see, like growing up, especially not in a Orthodox upbringing, I was familiar with the idea of mitzvot, right? Which are translated, interestingly, when I was growing up, as good deeds, as opposed to commandments. Very big difference between those translations, by the way. By the way, commandments isn't even such a good translation. Tzav is the root of the word mitzvah, which means connections. They're divine connections. Ways to and Reb Shlomo translated the word mitzvot as divine pathways. Just activities that you can do where you walk down this pathway of connection with God. And you had mitzvahs, and you had rabbis. But here's something that he really introduced into my consciousness, which is the idea of tzaddikim. Like tzaddikim was this consciousness of beyond. It was this whole kind of like group of individuals, and anyone could choose to want to enter into this incredible holy brotherhood, fellowship, to be a tzaddik, which meant to go beyond. Like there was no limit in terms of what you would do for another person, how much you would attach yourself to God, how much intention or how much depth you would put into your learning or your service in any zillions of ways. And this was the greatest gift, that it didn't cap out with a mitzvah, it didn't cap out with a rabbi. That you could be wholly given over in this limitless way. And that these stories of the tzaddikim that he would tell were these incredible invitations for you to inject your life with infinity. As I was growing up and I heard these stories from him, I checked out, lots of the world. But nothing touched me more than these stories of tzaddikim. So I'll just leave you with this. Be infinite. You know, one of the things that Reb Shlomo would do is if he reached his hand in his pocket to like give some money, and let's say I don't know what he had in mind to give, but let's say he pulled out more than he had in mind to give. He would just give all of it. So next time you reach into your pocket and you pull out more than you wanted to give, remember that there's another option where you can actually just be infinite and hand it all over.
Yes, you can. Thank you.